But once we're finished with that straight through processing matter, then we will be able to turn on retail. Like I said, there's a lot of corner cases that we've just kind of encountered as we go through that. Yeah, we have to do this, we have to do that. There's a little bit extra in there that we have to work through, but it's going to be, once it's done, it'll be done, and it'll be, a very widely available thing for everybody that are in those 18 states. And then as the applications come online, then for additional states. So Cardano Foundation specifically to begin with, and then I think IOG and the other entities have started to sort of speak with us. We've had conversations with each of them. We can't really get into the details, of course, but there's been a lot of good support from not just the community, but also the official kind of founding entities of Cardano. So that's been a really, really big blessing for us to be engaged with them.
What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, I'm sitting down with the president of the USDM stablecoin, none other than Matt Plowman, to discuss all of the latest updates when it comes to the fiat-backed stablecoin. Now, without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring him up on stage. But as a part of today's conversation, we've got a few topics that I want to highlight. So, Matt, welcome up. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Fareed. It's good to be here.
It's always a pleasure hosting you, man. We've got quite a bit to talk about. I think the biggest being the rebrand around Moneta. We've got the introduction of W3I software. We've also got some additional products, which I think are in the works, which I'd love to maybe hear a little bit more about. But let's maybe just go ahead and just start off with just general progress about USDM. So for anybody who's maybe seen you for the first time, you're the president of the fiat-backed stablecoin. And I've had you on the channel here multiple times. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the links to all of our prior interviews down below. The latest one and most notable was with yourself and a few other members from the NBX exchange. So on that front, obviously you guys have been building a lot. Can you give us any sort of updates when it comes to USDM and just the expansion of the stablecoin?
Yeah, thanks. So we've entered into a bit of a new era where we have a lot of value that's in USDM. So we're near at $5 million of market cap for the coin. And with that type of liquidity on chain, it helps with a lot of different things. So the integrations have started. Before we launched, we had a number of partnerships. We had a couple of dozen projects around the ecosystem between the different exchanges and the dApps and things that could make use of a fiat-backed stablecoin. They've started to come online in a serious way. So we're seeing a lot more integration with the different lending and borrowing protocols. We're seeing a lot more liquidity depth, a lot more stability on chain with the value of the USDM when it comes to the USDM ADA pair, when it comes to the USDM native token pairs. There's a lot of need for fiat-backed stablecoin in the ecosystem, especially as these projects who are trying to sell their, trying to get some liquidity for their token and get some opportunity for the users to really find a true value for that token that's unrelated to ADA. So whenever you have a project token that trades against ADA, it ends up being a little more volatile than it would if it was just trading against a stablecoin. And there were some, native token JED pairs. There were some native token IUSD pairs. And now we're seeing the reemergence of some native token USDM pairs. And as different projects are able to, get USDM on the DEXs and seed their own pools, we're seeing a lot more integration into the ecosystem. And the yield farming is still there. The liquidity pair yields are looking very, very good. And the opportunity for people to use USDM as just a regular old, exchange of value. I think we had a lot of people who are preparing to go to Rare Evo that are splitting bills and they're splitting expenses amongst the teams, and they're able to pay each other in USDM. And that's a really exciting integration that we're seeing that isn't necessarily a formal one, but it's one that is a great use case for this coin that individuals can, they can settle checks, they can, split the cost of attending the conference, and they can then, actually cash out and get their money out of the blockchain without needing to go through a centralized exchange and sell their ADA and all that. They can actually just use it as a rail for payments. And that's an exciting development that we hope, people make a lot more use of.
Yeah, and I feel like in terms of timing, you guys are just right on time. We've got a lot of V2 versions of different dexes in the ecosystem, right? Which have made swapping in and out of assets that much easier. And there's also a lot of migration of liquidity. So I know there's been a lot of talk about, as you mentioned, opening up more liquidity pools, with a lot of them being based in JED, or excuse me, not in JED, in USDM or any of the other stable coins that we've got here in the ecosystem, to provide just another method of trading, but then some stability to that aspect. Because again, the value of USDM shouldn't be changing against that token pair that they're trading. Whereas with ADA, that will be fluctuating with that Cardano native asset. Now, that said, Matt, there's been the addition of Hawaii very recently. Again, we're going to talk about W3I in just a second here. But could you maybe talk about how the legal process is going state to state? And then most recently, in I believe the June newsletter, you guys were talking about expanding into Australia, the Middle East, South America. What is maybe the status of some of those bigger expansions, as well as the US expansion, which of course was your first starting point?
Yeah, that's all coming online quickly. I don't know. I don't have any time for anything to expand, but I do know that at the beginning of July, Hawaii deregulated cryptocurrency, and they were able to, we're able to mint USDM for people who are in Hawaii, and mint and burn, and so that's been turned on for, I guess, the past couple of weeks since the beginning of July. The rest of the states, we have applications that are ready to be submitted for money transmitter licenses in the states that require it. And then there's the offshore development, where we've gone through the process of starting a Abu Dhabi based, Abu Dhabi based company that will be the issuing entity for the Middle East, for parts of Asia, and those that have reciprocity and recognize the virtual asset licenses that come out of the UAE. They're going to be able to take advantage of that. So that's something that's still in development. We have to file license applications into the regulatory things for those areas too. But for now, it's sort of we started with 17 states, now it's 18 states, and we're going to go through the process of getting additional states in the U.S. In parallel to the effort that's happening in sort of rest of world parts of the U.S. or sorry, parts of like the world that we recognize that Abu Dhabi, virtual asset license.
Noted. This has been interesting. I've actually been keeping up with stablecoins pretty closely here, to also see Circle being one of the first people within, I
Yeah.
believe, the European region to earn one of the stablecoin issuing licenses under MiCA is a huge opportunity. I know you guys have been working with Einstein and a few other members from NBX because of the fact that they also have certain licenses and regulatory applications in place to be able to be front runners or leaders once everything kind of gets rolling on that. And so I'm excited to see what you guys are able to do and how quickly the USDM reserves or the treasury grows after you guys are basically available to be minted by some of these other bigger exchanges.
Yeah, that'll be a big development. So NBX partnership is still going. It's still on. There hasn't been a lot of news out of it because I think I don't want to get too out in front of their process, but the process of operating the stablecoin in Europe is a little different from the US. And so you have to go through a number of regulatory hurdles that they're working through right now. And I'm sure that they'll have something to say about it, maybe at the upcoming conference. We're hoping for some news there and some formal announcements.
I'll be keeping an eye on that. Now, before I talk and ask about retail, which I think that is the one question on the general community's mind, let's maybe just back up a little bit, right? So over the course of the past maybe month and a half, there's been a brand new look and a brand new feel to USDM. So you guys have gone ahead and rebranded. Do you mind breaking down why the rebrand? And then there's also now Moneta, right? So can you explain what Moneta is? And then I want to jump into W3I and exactly how that plays into this equation as well.
Yeah, I guess if you wanted to get back into like the basics of it, so the word Mihen is from Egyptian lore. There's some god that is in the Egyptian lore that is called Mihen. It's the name of the snake on the Ouroboros symbol. So we wanted to come up with a name that is fairly Cardano centric because we're a Cardano built project and we're a bunch of people from the community that have come together to make this thing. And so we thought, well, we'll find a Cardano word. Charles has been very good about naming things, after some esoteric individuals or concepts. And so we were trying to get in that same vein. The trouble with Mihen is a lot of religious communities did not like that we named the token after we named the company after an Egyptian false god. And as we expand into other geographies and other areas that have an issue with that, we wanted to make sure that we're sensitive to everybody's needs. And so we searched for a new name that also began with M, so we wouldn't have to change the token name or anything. And the word Moneta is actually means money or coin in a number of different languages. It doesn't necessarily have the same baggage that Mihen would. And it kind of comes off the tongue a little better. It's a nicer word. So we changed the company's name to Moneta Digital. If you wanted to really get into it, when you use the word, so the name of the company that issued the token originally was Mihen Finance LLC, and we had two companies. We had Mihen Finance LLC, we had Mihen Innovations, and so when you see a lot of crypto projects, they'll do this sort of foundation, DAO, labs, governance structure, this kind of three-party thing, and the foundation issues the token, the DAO governs everything, and then the labs is actually the software company that creates the protocol. And we thought, well, we can't necessarily have a DAO structure because we're going to be regulated. And we can't necessarily have this like foundation labs company, but we can do something similar where we have what was originally Mihen Finance LLC, which was the token issuing, license holding, like small company that was a special purpose entity for the protection of the USDM holders. And then there was Moneta, there was Mihen Innovations. So Mihen Innovations was the labs company, the software company. That was the company that paid the bills and did all the things that were not specifically issuing and redeeming a token, because issuing and redeeming a token is in many places a license required activity. And the process of getting the license and the process of making the software are two totally separate processes. So we came up with two companies. One of them we called it Innovations. One of them we called it Finance. And when we were going through the licensing process, we found out that in a lot of different places, that was a confusing concept because they were both called Mihen. And the word finance in New York specifically is a banned term that you can only use for companies that have banking licenses or in the financial services industry. So that right away, we realized that we had done something a little weird. So very early on, we changed from Mihen Innovations. We changed the name of that company to W3I Software, just to completely clear the air that this is not issuing tokens. This is issuing software. And this is creating the backbone that drives the token creation. The token creation and issuing is actually done by now it's called Moneta Digital. So they're two separate companies, but they work very, very closely together. The way that the arrangement is, it's that Moneta Digital holds all the licenses, is the regulated entity, is responsible for doing KYC, doing all of the regulated activities. And then what happens is they get revenue off of the reserve, and then they pay W3I almost all of the revenue. So we have some expenses that have to deal with bank expenses and things. And so minus of the slight bit of costs that go into actually operating the stablecoin, all of that revenue is passed over to W3I. And so now what we've done is we can get into the crowdfunding, but that's the setup, and that's how these two companies work together. Is the hand in hand. W3I makes all of the software, and Moneta Digital makes the stablecoin and is the regulated license holding body.
Very nice summary. I just released a video trying to explain that to my community. It took me a while to understand, if I'm being honest with you, right? And I know you and I have had ongoing Discord conversations, and you've been nice enough to like lay down, the framework for me to better, kind of digest it. And so I just want to recap, if that's okay with you, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So at the very bottom level, we've got USDM, which is the actual fiat-backed stablecoin that people know and love, right? 5 million nearly minted on chain. Right above that, we've got the builders who are building out, right, all of the tooling, infrastructure, smart contracts for USDM. And that's now done by Moneta, aka, or which used to be Mihen. And above that, we've now got W3I, which basically covers, Moneta as one entity. But I believe there's actually other products that could come out of W3I. So there's actually been something that I've seen on the ChainRaise website, which I'd love to maybe ask you a little bit more about. But before we get into that, I see you guys have raised over $80,000 US, right? And I believe the minimum goal was currently set to 50,000. Do you mind breaking down why you guys have gone through ChainRaise? Because a lot of people go with just the traditional token fund, right, or the traditional token generation event directly on Cardano with a partner with another program or a partner with another project. Why have you guys taken this road, and where do you see the future of maybe token sales or tokenizing assets like this going in the future?
Yeah. So a lot of the token issuance that you see out there is done outside of the US. And so that's one thing is we have to figure out how to do this legally within the US framework. And luckily, back during the Obama administration, there was a regulation passed called Regulation Crowdfunding that was part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from the Obama administration. And it was a bipartisan bill that enabled individuals who had small businesses to go and raise capital through a crowdfund. And that was really a reaction to the original ITO boom back when like Filecoin and the rest of them went public or did their initial token offering. And so to clear up, so the intention was to build a framework around a process where individuals can buy shares in small companies. And so it's kind of like a Kickstarter, but Kickstarter you would sell a product, and with a crowdfund you actually sell equity in the company. And there's an SEC registration process, and there's a whole bunch of disclosures you have to go through. You have to file a lot of paperwork that describes what you've gone through, and you have to actually partner with a registered broker dealer that's been set up to do crowdfundings. And the big one that's in the space is called WeFunder. WeFunder is not very crypto friendly, and so when we approached WeFunder about potentially doing an equity sale with them and then tokenizing it, they said, "Wait a second, tokenizing is way outside of what we would ever do. And by the way, we don't do crypto things anyway, so you should probably find a different partner." So we did, and we found this company called ChainRaise, which is also a regulated broker dealer that's SEC registered. And they do a great job of, putting together the offering and then helping us to market it to the public. And they're also the one big difference is that ChainRaise has done a number of different tokenized equity offerings that have gone on to be equity tokens that are traded on the Ethereum blockchain. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we can come up with a way to do this offering to the public and then tokenize it, give people the option to tokenize it after it's complete. So that's kind of step 2 is after the raise is complete, then we'll begin to offer a way to tokenize this on Cardano. And I've worked with a couple of developers. There should be a SIP released pretty soon that will help to define the way that you can legally and within the letter and spirit of the law come up with a way to tokenize the equity in a Cardano native asset. So that's an exciting development that we're doing. So it's kind of a twofold way of doing the crowdfunding, or 2 reasons why we've done it is so that we can, number one, give the community a way to invest in the company, and then also raise capital for us so we can operate and continue to build this out and finish kind of the final development of the company, and then really finish the initial development of the company and kind of finalize this kind of stage 1, and then work into equity tokenization, work into the other structures that need to be built in order to properly trade and transfer equity tokens to between users and to individuals.
Quick follow-up. Do you mind breaking down the benefit from a holder's perspective of basically what they stand to gain, right, as an equity holder for W3I?
Yeah, it's different from really like a governance token in that it's I think that there's a lot of unsettled law around governance tokens, and you have in the governance token world a lot of uncertainty about what exactly the governance token gets you. You have a white paper, but sometimes the white paper then roadmap changes, and there's not a lot of recourse that an individual token holder would have to the company or to the issuer in order to enforce those changes that could happen on the roadmap. So I think that under a tokenized equity offering like what we're doing, or to be tokenized equity offering under Reg CF, is that you can really have a lot of documentation and a lot of ways to enforce the agreements that we've made through official corporate governance that can be enforced in Delaware courts. It can be enforced in a variety of jurisdictions around the US. And so that's really the benefit for investing in a company's equity token rather than investing in sort of a governance token. The controls are a little less clear in a governance token, and they're a little more tried and true kind of traditional corporate governance, traditional shareholder rights stuff in the crowdfunding.
Noted, and thank you. Now, you've mentioned the tokenization aspect on the backside. Obviously, that isn't available right now, but taking a look at some of the information on the ChainRaise page, which I'll leave that down below for the viewers, there's the mention of a platform called MaviKai. Are you able to share anything here about that platform and what it's basically going to aim to do? Because if I'm not mistaken, this would be the second offering from W3I, which is basically unrelated to Moneta or USDM.
Correct. Yeah. So MaviKai it's a cool word. Mavi is Turkish for ocean, and Kai is Japanese for, or Mavi is Turkish for blue, and Kai is Mavi is Turkish for blue. Kai is Japanese for ocean, and so it's a cool little word that we've kind of created, this portmanteau, and the idea will be to create MaviKai as really it'll end up being two companies. There'll be MaviKai, the SEC registered crowdfunding vehicle that is similar to the company we're using right now to do our crowdfunding. And then there would be a second layer to it called MaviKai Markets. That'll be again, SEC registered alternative trading system where you can trade the equity tokens. So I think there's a little bit of trepidation around trading securities on chain through a DEX architecture. And so a lot of the different governance tokens have gone through great lengths to ensure that they're not classified as investment products. They're not going to be regulated as investment products, but these tokens actually will be regulated like that. And so they'll be able to be traded within certain exchange that'll be called MaviKai Markets. And that'll be kind of a narrow purpose exchange that's used for the W3I shares, and then also for any additional companies that we would help bring to market that would be in a similar sort of raise that like we're doing now with the team at ChainRaise.
Got it, and thank you. Really awesome to hear that you guys are looking to expand your services and potentially bring in another revenue stream, right, for anybody who's invested in W3I.
I think it kind of starts at the stablecoin, where you think about, well, we have a stablecoin, and so what do we do with the stablecoin? Well, we use it as a vehicle then to help people raise equity. So the ultimate goal will be to allow individuals to give, ADA, USDM, JED, a variety of different crypto tokens that are on Cardano, and then use those to buy shares in companies that would be then tokenized equity for the individuals that are getting those, that participate in those offerings.
Got it. Thank you for that. Looking forward to hear more about MaviKai. Now, that said, we've talked a little bit about USDM and where you guys stand. I know you guys received some catalyst funding. I think it was maybe funding around 11 or 10. It's been such a long time. We actually just got the release of funding 12 proposals that were funded earlier today. Do you mind maybe giving us just a brief update about where you guys stand with the proposal and maybe what is left? And then I'd love to maybe shift the conversation to talk a little bit about retail.
Yeah, as you know, Catalyst, I think it was fund is it 8 or 9 or 10. One of those, a while back, they started doing milestone-based funding, and so they required you, when you put your proposal in, to put development milestones. And as you reach those milestones, then you get your Catalyst payments. And so we've gone through the first 3 of 6 milestones. Milestone 4 is going to be bank integration and automatic sort of straight through processing for all of it. And it's been a little bit of a challenge to get that going. We've been working with a number of different banking partners to get the right APIs and the right processes built that are not only, I mean, to find a bank that's willing to work with with a crypto company is a very difficult thing, but also we've been able to find ones that have good high quality APIs that we can use then to straight through process from the purchase then through to the mint, or then from the burn then through to the cash back to the user. And that whole process, it sounds very easy, but it's there's a lot of corner cases that we've been working through. And so we have received like half of our Catalyst funding. We'll get the other half once we do milestone 3, because milestones 4, 5, and 6 are actually completed, and that'll be the last of it. So we'll be, through the Catalyst and then out of Catalyst at that point. And we hope that that'll be it for us for Catalyst, but there may be an opportunity then, maybe if we wanted to go and expand into the MaviKai product, if we wanted to go into other efforts, if we wanted to build other things that supplement the stablecoin, like a peer-to-peer payment system or some sort of bill pay or additional capabilities. I don't think that we would need to go to Catalyst for that, but that could be really the only reason why we would go back. I understand that Catalyst is a very good tool for people who are building on Cardano, and a lot of different blockchains will give development grants, and that's just kind of our version of it. And while I understand the need for that, I think that a business probably should be able to stand on its own and make its own company profitable without needing to continue to visit and dip into the treasury. So we're working very hard to make that our goal, where we don't necessarily have to go back to the well again and go get more ADA again and again and again. The main push for doing Catalyst was to launch a USDM stablecoin and make it an important piece of the Cardano blockchain, just like the people who are making the gummy worm, the other Hydra implementations, the other wallets, and the other transaction explorers, the things that benefit the community. Those are great to be paid for by Catalyst. And so if we can come up with a way that something that we build is going to be a great benefit to the community, like USDM has been, I think that would justify us to go back. But when we did our application, we said, no, we're not going to go back for more Catalyst, and we haven't gone back for more Catalyst money since then.
Thanks for keeping your word. But I would also like to maybe just say that you guys have had a huge impact here on the ecosystem. You guys have delivered on USDM. So I think at this point, you guys have built up enough trust and built up enough respect that if you had to go back, I think there'd be more than enough people willing to support you.
Once we're finished with that straight through processing matter, then we will be able to turn on retail. That's really the only thing that's blocking us, is having an ability to scale up our operations so that we can have a lot of assurance that when funds arrive in the account, that then they trigger a mint and they go to the right wallet. And when funds arrive, when USDM arrives in the burn wallets, then they come back and they get burned, and the transaction then goes through the other side, and it all happens quickly. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of corner cases that we've just kind of encountered as we go through that. Yeah, we have to do this, we have to do that. There's a little bit extra in there that we have to work through, but it's going to be, once it's done, it'll be done, and it'll be a very widely available thing for everybody that are in those 18 states. And then as the applications come online, then for additional states.
Thank you for that. And obviously, I'm sure you hear probably more than I do, especially in the Discord. People are anxious for that, right? Again,
Mhm. As they should be. As they should be. It's justified.
And I think it really goes to show that even though right now a lot of people have said, hey, we need more liquidity, et cetera, I'm like, wait until we get retail. That's when we're really, I think, personally going to see a big boom. Now, that said, I mean, there's been like 2 or 3 really big mints that have come through in the past month or so. The biggest one, or the latest one, I think it was like $1.3 million. Is there anything that you're able to share with the community, about who, how, or why we're starting to see some of these bigger mints? And then if there's maybe any anticipation of like bigger mints that are currently in the pipelines that we could see coming through the treasury or the reserve soon.
There's a lot of prove it. There's a lot of prove it on this. We have to be confidential with who the individuals are and how they're, who's coming through to mint and burn. We have, I think it's around, I think it's close to 40 different individuals who are minting and burning USDM on a fairly regular basis. And so those, those people are finding great opportunity, and they're able to mint and take advantage of DPEGs and do their yield farming thing. And so it's been really good to have them in. We don't necessarily have any large mints in the pipeline right now, but they kind of come out of nowhere, and they really do. It's been sort of like get an email from a guy and say, hey, we're looking to do a big number, let's talk. And so then you talk with them and you make sure that they're legit and that they're actually they're actually going to do what they're going to say they're going to do, and then it happens. So it's a little shocking, even for us who have been building it, and we have this sort of if you build it they will come mentality, and we're just kind of head down making sure that the systems work correctly, and that everything's tight for security, and that the infrastructure is sound, and that everything goes as it should be. So that's really where we are. And as these big guys come on, I think it's a benefit to the ecosystem, certainly, and it's an opportunity for people to believe that, or people to see that there's folks who understand this process is a robust one, and that there's a need for this amount of liquidity on Cardano. And then it's very much like a snowball effect, where you go and you start off with a few $1,000s a piece, you get up to 10s, 20s, 50s, 100,000, 500,000, and there aren't a lot of people and individuals that can go ahead and just drop a lot of money like that. But if they understand that it's really not necessarily like you're spending your money and you're getting nothing for it, you're definitely getting $1 on Cardano, and that is a valuable thing for people to have, because they want to engage in DeFi, they want to engage in payments abroad, and there's a lot of different uses for it. And we're going to continue to try to make more and more appealing use cases for USDM throughout the ecosystem.
Thank you. And as we get ready to kind of wrap up here, I want to give you an opportunity, maybe sort of gather, any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the community. But one thing that I'd like to pose before we get to that is, what do you think can be done around, we've just kind of talked about liquidity, but incentives for people to actually mint and hold, or even just purchase USDM on the open market and holding it? Because what I see as a creator is that a lot of people are anxious for stable coins. We finally got them now, right? You guys are becoming that name. You guys are becoming that go-to option. But a lot of other comments that I also see are, well, if I'm holding ADA, especially right now, when we're technically in a bull market, the price or the appreciation of that asset should be going up. So there's no need for me to be holding a stable coin. Have you given any thought, around any incentives or any use cases that the community can participate in to still feel like they're accruing value even while holding a stable asset like USDM?
Um, one of the troubles with making a stablecoin is that the stablecoin maker can't actually pay interest on the stablecoin into the market, because then it would be a banking product or it would be an investment product. And so I think that we've been lucky to have a lot of incentivized mints that come out from the different dexes, or incentivized yield, yield farming and liquidity pooling. So there's now a lot of stable swap pairs that would be a fairly low risk way of getting reasonable interest on your dollars. There's I can't necessarily advocate for not buying ADA, because where it is, the price right now is pretty silly. But there's a lot of need for stability. There's a lot of need for certainty, and especially when you have bills to pay and you have things coming up. As people get their catalyst funding, it's going to come to them in ADA, and they're going to have to start paying either developers, web hosters, third-party providers, lawyers, whatever they have to pay in order to get services. And so having a bit of that ADA that's in your catalyst funding swapped into a USDM, so that you can at least have some certainty that there won't be any sudden dips that you all of a sudden like you didn't expect. So imagine that as the price moves, you could expect it to go up eventually, but in the meantime, there are sort of dips, and you imagine having to sell a lot of ADA at a dip time because you have to cash it out in order to get your USD. So there's a lot of benefit to going in, swapping into USDM for at least the piece of your expense stack that's coming, so that you can at least be sure that like that much is paid for, and then you can go forward from there. it will be certainly a lot cheaper to swap into USDM and then cash out, with us than it would be to swap into, put your ADA on exchange, sell it, swap into USDC, cash that out, or do the entire, send it to a centralized exchange, sell for a fee, take it out of your bank, you pay the fee to remove it, then you pay for your bank fees. And there's a lot of fees that get stacked up if you do that way. If you do direct ADA to USDM on a DEX, and you then USDM to your bank through Moneta, then that's the way that will be the cheapest way, I think, to get your dollars into your bank account from the ADA that you're getting from Catalyst.
Thank you, Matt. I've got one last question, and then again, I want to get your closing thoughts here. So there's been partnerships with GSR, Emergo. Emergo's brought on Huawei, and there's also been the XE platform that was announced, I believe, by IOG, the stablecoin venture. Has USDM or the Moneta team been in conversations with anybody within the ecosystem, right? That's maybe looking to support liquidity, growth, development that you're able to share here with us? Because again, I know that we're starting to see more partnerships being formed. And with something as critical as a stablecoin, I'm wondering, if you guys are being included as a part of those conversations to sort of grow the experience here within Cardano.
Oh, absolutely. I think that from the start, the Cardano Foundation specifically has been very supportive of us getting exposure. So they certainly helped. We got a nice little feature at the Cardano Summit in Dubai last year. We were at the summit, we were at Rare Evo, and a lot of the founding entities have had good reception for USDM. They're very supportive of the project. They support us in the different ways that they can. So Cardano Foundation specifically to begin with, and then I think IOG and the other entities have started to sort of speak with us. We've had conversations with each of them. We can't really get into the details, of course, but there's been a lot of good support from not just the community, but also the official kind of founding entities of Cardano. So that's been a really, really big blessing for us to be engaged with them.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear it and look forward to hopefully getting some official news that you can share here with us to really, again, boost the spirits and rally the troops behind USDM. Because, again, I think you guys were the underdogs and still are in a sense, right? There's been ongoing conversations about USDC, USDT, and I personally don't think that that's going to stop. But, what I also tend to tell my community is we just got to roll with the punches and do with what we got right now. We can sit here and hope for things. We can sit here and expect for things to happen. But that's just that hope and expectations. On the flip side, what we can also do is support people that have already built a product and that are already live here in the ecosystem. And that's why I love to have you on and really look forward to continuing to support Moneta, USDM, and W3I. That said, we've been going for about 37 minutes or so-ish. I know you're probably tired. You've got a lot going on personally. I'd love to maybe turn this over to you to close us out and then give us any closing thoughts or maybe key takeaways, right, on anything that we may or may not have touched on so far.
Yeah, sure. It's just I don't want to plug the crowdfunding too much, but imagine being a shareholder of Tether from when they started. Imagine being a shareholder of Circle from when they started. Those aren't opportunities that you can have as an individual, but they are opportunities that you can have here on Cardano with USDM and supporting W3I by buying equity in W3I. And it's there's been a very good uptake. It seems like every time we do a space or we do an announcement, there's a little pop in that raise to date amount, and that amount is currently we're capped at 617,000. That's a regulatory cap for as much as we can raise through the crowdfunding. We could raise up to 5 million if we were to find a lot of success and we end up getting to 617,000. We can then extend the offering and add more shares to the offering and make that something that can really grow. And so we're excited about that. So the website is w3i.chainraise.com, and that let me see if that's it's com. Oh no, IO. Shoot, it's so on w3i.chainraise.io, and so through that website, the web portal, there's all the investor documents, all of the information about the offering, all of our financials. Which to be frank, we're a startup, so we're not in a profitable position right now. But that's how startups go, is they They spend money to start, they show losses to start, and then they end up, hopefully getting to a profitable position, and then growing through that and becoming a really good investment for individuals. And so that's our goal. So our goal is to make this an equity investment that the Cardano community can make in their own stablecoin, so that we can really have keep the money at home, be a beneficial ecosystem to grow ourselves and to grow those people who are building on the ecosystem.
Thank you, Matt Plomin here, CEO and founder of, I guess at this point, is it W3I Moneta, or is it just president and founder of USDM and Moneta?
Yeah, keep it there. It's all the above, except that there's, yeah. I mean, I'm specifically focused on finishing the progress we've made toward retail launch, toward making this a sustainable thing for everybody. So
Yeah.
I'm focusing right now on USDM through Moneta, and then when that's kind of running on its own, then we can have a new focus on tokenizing equity. We can have a new focus on filing SEC registrations for alternative trading systems. We can focus on really bringing the whole capital markets infrastructure onto Cardano in a way that is done in a decentralized way that empowers individuals to invest their money in in ways that they're used to doing on their 401k, their IRA, their individual investment accounts, that are not necessarily buying L1 tokens and trying to flip Nike for a profit, but instead you can do something where you're investing in a core infrastructure of Cardano. And so one of the things we put in our investment deck is that USDM is really the only investable stablecoin that's out there. You can't invest in Tether Co, whatever the company is that issues Tether. You can't invest in Circle Co. You can go and beg them to come to Cardano and pay them tens of millions of dollars to come to Cardano, or you can invest in your own ecosystem. You can benefit from that investment, and then actually grow and benefit the whole Cardano community as well.
Yeah, Charles has, I think, been making a point to also highlight that, right? Again, we can look elsewhere. The grass is always greener, but sometimes you just really have to support those that have been with you, especially from day one. And so, you guys have been there. I remember speaking with you, Steve Fisher. I'm talking a long time ago. This was like 2 years ago on the couch in Colorado at like the very first ever Rare. It wasn't even called Rare Evo. I think it was called. What was the first name? I forget now, man.
Oh, Rare Bloom, yeah.
Rare Bloom, that's what it was. And I remember meeting you there and again, being able to see, the travail, the pressure, but then the delivery has really been an awesome experience. So you guys have my full support here. For the viewers watching at home, I'll leave the links to the ChainRaise equity raise, for lack of better words there, linked down below. If you guys have any questions about that, make sure to go ahead, make sure to go ahead and leave those for myself and Matt. I'm also going to leave the links to the monthly newsletters. I think those are very important in terms of just updates, right? And just understanding where USDM is. So I really recommend that everybody goes in and tunes in and signs up for those. That'll do it here, Matt, unless you've got anything else that you want to touch on. Again, I really, really want to thank you for always joining me, providing a ton of insights and hopefully providing some value to the viewers here. You watching at home, if you found any portion of today's video to be helpful, I'd really appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. It's really one of the easiest ways to support me here on the channel. Not only does it help me, but also helps to get this content out to everybody who's outside of the ecosystem wondering what's going on. That said, if you do appreciate the content, make sure to go ahead and consider subscribing to Dapp Central. And last but not least, if you have any questions for myself or Matt as it pertains to W3I, Moneta, USDM, anything, right? Then make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. Again, that'll do it for today's video. That said, and as always, we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers, everybody.